What you're seeing back here are some of the rarest vehicles in the world. They're Yellowstone park buses. Now, Yellowstone is our first national park. And back in the 1830s and 1840s, we had this great debate. And the debate was whether everything should be privatized, like over in Europe. If you go over in Europe and you want to go play or hike, you got to have 30 or 40 permits. Everything's private ground. Congress decided around 1840, we can check on the dates, that it was important enough to protect Yellowstone and make it our first national park. But they wouldn't fund it. They were just as functional back then as they were today. So the cavalry moved in and says, you have to pay us for the military, we're going to fund that. So between 1840 and 1917, they had the Yellowstone Park Transportation Company. You'd get off the steam engine and you'd get in a stagecoach and you'd see Yellowstone. In 1916, they passed a law that said we're going to have motorized transportation. So what you see behind me are these buses, and they were used from 1917 through World War II. The other thing, there was a tragedy back in 1924, is a Yellowstone Park bus barn burned down with most of the buses, including the 1917s. There's only 2 original 1917s that I know in the world. Yellowstone has one in a conservatorium, and I have one. So we're going to see back here are the 1925s, because most of them got burnt down. There was only 60 of those made. And out of the 60, I probably have about 25 of them. And what's so important is each one has history. This is a Yellowstone bus. This is number 302. Now, when bus 302 was sold off, it was turned into a school bus and painted blue and totally enclosed. They had a basically little tiny stove in there, and that stove came up with a stovepipe through the exhaust to go ahead and heat it up. Now I'm going to show you these motors on this one. This one's all original, and the motor on this one has an updraft carburetor. Actually, let's go over to the other side. This has what's called an updraft carburetor. All the modern ones have a downdraft carburetor. Now, what an updraft carburetor means, here's where it goes into the engine, and it has to pull fuel all the way from the bottom. And it's got the original motor on it, and some of these had original leather, and this one is an original nylon that came out a little bit earlier, and you see how easy that spins. So this has got a brass engine, and it's just a beautiful contraption. Now, that engine is a 4-cylinder, but it only put out 40 horsepower for the size of that motor. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and shut that. And if you want, you can jump up the cab. Now, this right here is actually the temperature gauge. If I turn this around, you'll see it's kind of a thermometer, and it'll tell you how hot the engine is right there. Now, this is original hand crank, and you can't start it with hand crank, but they were converted in the 20s to electric start. So we're going to go ahead and hop up in this one. So here's the original odometer. There's the original oil pressure gauge. And now what we're going to do is I've got a compression release. So we're going to turn the key on. We're going to push a compression release. I'm going to put the clutch in. And then what I'm going to do is once I get it spinning, I have to reach down and turn the magneto on. So hold on, this is going to be fun. I'm going to put my light there so you can see it. There she is running, guys. Probably spinning at less than 200 RPM. Hear that thing and how well she runs? So the first safety feature was that exhaust whistle. And it's a 4-tone whistle, and it's not off a steam engine. It was specifically designed for these buses. The next safety feature is these were so quiet, running 15 to 30 miles an hour, you'd get run over. So they screwed, all the early ones had doors on the left-hand side, and they actually screwed them shut. And these are beautiful. The tops go down, and they're just absolutely beautiful. In fact, we had a movie company, because they're doing a new sequel about the Yellowstone buses, offer us $5-10 million for the buses because I have the only collection in the world. And I turned them down. Now, you might ask why I did that. Is because if those buses go to the movies, you can see them at the movies, but you can never see them again. I want to share them with the public. It's a sense of Americana, and we all own that sense of Americana. Okay, guys, we're going to talk about one of the most important vehicles in America, and it's the tow truck behind you. That tow truck started out as a Yellowstone Park bus, and the buses were sold off during World War II. And they didn't need buses, so most of them were made into hay rakes. They were so tough, they used them for everything. Now, the one behind you, if you notice out, is a Yellowstone Park bus, but they put a 28, 29 Ford cab on it. They shortened it up, and they put this huge, massive chain drive block winch in it off of a boat. So this was one of the first heavy-duty wreckers in the United States. It was used with the original cab, the original motor, the original drivetrain through 1976. I have the cab car. Then it was sold to a collection of the Yellowstone buses and had the best preserved drivetrain. It had the best preserved radiator, the best preserved wheel because it was stored inside, and they were going to cut it up and throw it away. And I couldn't let them do it because, I mean, there's a sense of Americana there that I couldn't let go. It's a part of America during the Great Depression that we use what we have. So I bought it from the collection. I agreed to let them have the drivetrain, and I decided what could we do to be true to Americana. And at the time, they would have used a 4BT Cummins. So unlike Sparks or Industrial that, get these twin turboed ones, we found a bread truck that was crusty as you could get. The only thing we changed was the oil filter because that's what they would have done. I found a T19 out of my Ford pickup truck that I put in, and then we used military parts. We've used an Axletech 600 transfer case, which has a air drive PTO, which drives the original PTO winch on it, the chain block. Then we took these Axletechs. Now we did the ones under the Mega Ram Runner, with Sparks and us. We built it, but it was too wide. So if you see right here, we actually narrowed these 10 inches aside. So these are the narrowest Axletechs in the world. They've been narrowed 20 inches. We haven't done any paint work on this. If you look under this, why this is so strong, look how those strings packs are. Look how huge those are. We put some airbag overloads on it, and those are ours and those are modern, but they actually have the leather's limiting straps. Everything on this is original in the paint. If you look under here, you see these are torque arms. Those are the original torque arms. You see the original Yellowstone paint. All the springs are original. Everything's original. The only thing that wasn't is the drivetrain. So we actually took this to SEMA. Basically in 2018, Truck Hero was promised a build that would look like the new Bronco, and it didn't show up. We had like 3 hours to get this down to SEMA, and I says to Lee Reiser, I says, Lee, I can save SEMA, it's okay. Nobody give up an MX2 build. So we run this down, and with the history of it, this was top 5 of show. As far as everybody's concerned, this was top 5. The reason Jeep loved me, he looked by and he says, hey, Steve, everybody's got to have new tires, and these tires look like they were used in Iraq. And I says, they were. And we still take this out, and we do recoveries on it. And in fact, I'm not trying to do this, but they did a special car show for Matt down here, and they did it with Dixie 4-wheel drive off-road. I showed up with 10 vehicles to support it, and they had a special award for best yellow vehicle because Matt's her vehicles. And I'm sorry, Matt, the Yellowstone park buses got the best yellow. I didn't do that. I'm sorry. And then Mator, it's Mator's dad, actually took best off-road wrecker at that show. And I don't think you can beat it because I am a caretaker of it. Some people are mad that it isn't in a museum, but museums don't even have a Yellowstone bus. The first vehicles that went on off-road, Matterhorn, you name it. I'm going to jump up here and I'm going to fire this one up for a second. And it's the original Model 8 paint on the inside. You look at these welds, the acetylene, the arc welds, these are 100 years old and they're still holding up. Yeah. So you want to talk about some really Americana and craftsmanship is just amazing. The next thing I'll talk about here is what we call Optimus Prime. So it's on a Seagrave chassis, 2007. You might have heard of Blackwater, and they had a few problems back then, and these were the MRAP prototypes. So these are up armor. They're pre-emissions. They had like 17 miles on them. This one's got an Acer Cat 7 with a 3000 Allison, and you ought to see how big the meteor axles are on it. But this is a 56 Bullnose Kenworth, which is really rare. And let's see, it'll fire up. It's got under 200 miles. We look at preserving Americana. You couldn't get those Seagrave chassis anymore. You couldn't get the up armoring. They're pre-emissions. And how better to do it than take a piece of Americana and share it with everybody. I mean, look at here. Look at this perfect. We didn't even put that American flag there. Doesn't that speak America? So I feel really blessed. I worked hard all my life, and I feel really blessed to be able to share this. I'm honored to have the Yellowstone bus collection. I'm honored to have Mator and preserve that. And I'm honored to find that Bullnose, because you can see how perfectly it fits on there, and it's just part of Americana. Let me tell you a reason that America is so important to me. America isn't that we're the greatest country in the world. America is a melting pot. And the Declaration of Independence speaks to everyone. It says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all people everywhere are created with certain inherent and inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That governments are instituted to protect these rights. That whenever government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. So that's a creed not just for America, that's a creed for everyone. And what people ought to love about America is that what we fight for, not just around the world, but here at home. And this to me is, we come to America, we come together, we share our pains, we share our successes and victories, and I want to share the best part of the motorized transportation with everyone in the world here at MXT. Guys, until next time,